Bill here from Maple Leaf Enterprises with your DBA tip of the day. This is a pretty big one. In fact, you should make it a rule that this is something that is done at some point, especially after you're done with an install or you're done with some kind of maintenance, if it's not already there. What is it? Well, quite simply, we had a storage issue on a particular machine, and alerts went out to the systems folks. And lo and behold, one of the file systems on the Oracle database, one of the ext3 file systems, was about 98 or 99% full. Systems administrator found conveniently a 20 gig LUN that was free, or appeared to be free, and allocated that LUN, added to an LVM in Linux, and added to that file system, and the alert went away, and lo and behold, everything was fixed. Now, that LUN was not free, and there was really no way for this particular administrator to know, so I don't blame them. They just went on the system. They get a call. They're busy. I get it. It happens, especially folks who work in data centers. They're constantly running around putting out fires. But there was no way of him knowing that the disk was owned by ASM. Okay? And luckily we use... When I had set the box up for ASM, I had used high redundancy, which requires five LUNs to create the OCR voting disk. Always when I create the voting disk, ASM disk group, I always use high redundancy and use 5 LUNs, even if they're small. These happen to be 20 gigs apiece. And that's the dedicated OCR. Now, luckily, because it's both mirrored and redundant, by pulling that disk out, it did not cause any issues, right? So we can actually go in and allocate that back to Oracle and then add it in, and it will rebalance, and we'll go on with our lives, and it won't be a big deal. So fortunately, that was set up right. But what this tip is going to do is just show you this. This is just one thing as a DBA. Now, I know sometimes you don't have access. You don't have root access. I usually be nice to your systems administrators and, make sure that they're confident and comfortable with you having, or at least sudo root access, so that you can have root access, because it does help a lot, because you can help them as much as they can help you. So have a good relationship with those folks, because it's important. It's important that there's not walls and barriers between those two groups. But what you're going to want to do is simply this. And if you don't have access, you're going to pretty much tell the systems administrator, hey, look, this box is managed by Oracle ASM. All right, and I need this banner message put in there so that everybody gets this. So usually it's an Etsy profile or bash RC. Easiest way to do it is, put it in Etsy profile, but maybe you also put it in Etsy Skell in one of those files, like bash RC or whatever. So if a user gets created, the user will actually get that pushed into their personal profile. I prefer to do it globally, because I want to make sure that everybody who goes on that box knows that they can't touch the kernel, they can't touch the storage, and they can't touch the network. It's just what it is. Because if you touch any of those things, Oracle's going to have a fit. And again, fortunate that the OCR and voting disk was set up with that redundancy, that we didn't have an outage. Now, if he would have grabbed one of the other disks in the other disk groups, we could have recovered from that as well, because there's a lot of other disks as well. Would have rebalanced between all of them and whatnot, and we still would be okay. But the point is that now we're going to have to go in and add that disk back in and blah, 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 blah. But if this message was present, he would have known right away when he went in, like, oh, wow, I can't do anything here. I better let me talk to the DBAs and find out what's going on because I need to add space. Okay, so that's just, the tip of the day. Just put that message in there or something of this nature where it basically says, hey, look, this is managed by grid. That's if indeed grid infrastructure is installed and you are using ASM, because this isn't the first time this has happened. This has happened before on systems, just simply because people don't know. And if they don't know, I mean, if I was on the other side of the fence too, being the assistant administrator going in, and I really wasn't aware of, a system that was running on ASM, I would probably do the same thing. So just anyway, believe me, that is probably a great thing to do for everybody in the org. And again, if you can't get access to do it yourself, pretty much convince your system administrator to put something similar to this on all your Oracle boxes that are managed by grid infrastructure, just to avoid issues. Especially, because you have to remember, even if you go in and touch the kernel, ASM is tied to the kernel. So if they're going in and making kernel changes, or they even make an update, and that kernel is not consistent with the ASM lib and the ASM drivers, you're going to have a database that's just going to be down as well. So just be aware of that. And I always say storage and network as well, because look, all the storage is managed by ASM, right? The network through grid control, because you have especially in rack, you have the scan IPs, you have the private interconnects. Plus, you have the IP of the box. You have the 9. There's 9 in 2-node rack. There's 9 IP addresses, right? You do the math. It's 3 for every, right? Exponentially, it gets kind of crazy. So you can't even really touch the network, especially the host name. You can't even play around. You change the host name, you basically got to deconfigure and reconfigure grid infrastructure, right? So it gets real sloppy and real messy really fast. So just you do yourself a favor, put that little message in there, and it will save a lot of problems. And it'll put you on the same page with the Linux administrators and the administration group. And you should be. You should all be on the same page, the DBAs, the administrators, and to a lesser extent, the storage folks. You're all kind of playing in the same sandbox, right? So you just got to make sure you don't throw sand at each other, right? Everybody gets a turn driving the truck, and everybody gets a time using the crane, put the dirt in the back of the truck, that type of thing. So, so anyway, there you have it. There's the tip of the day, and that's a big one. So I hope this helps.